Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today it's time to have a look at a devblog, not for update hot tracks, but instead for the Operation Winter event. This is the Ro.57 Quadriarma, and it is going to be a rank 2 Italian premium aircraft, a twin-engined machine, which should be a lot of fun. The Ro.57 is a platform I've personally been looking forward to for a long time, so I'm happy that it's in the game, even as just an event vehicle, because there are some other options which could easily fit into the tree. Now, before we get started into this, a little bit of news. The update was delayed. So update hot tracks did not come out today. It is now going to come out tomorrow on the 18th of December from 6 GMT. The server will not be available, so it'll probably be ready around like 7 or 8 GMT. That's normally how long it takes these things. It's a little bit worrying that this is now coming on the same day that Operation Winter starts. Operation Winter basically begins just after this update comes in. It starts on the 18th of December at 11 GMT. So there's only going to be a few hours between the dropping of the update and the start of Operation Winter. That normally worries me personally. Normally with updates like this, there are some bugs that do come along with them. In the last update, Update New Power, there were a few quite severe bugs. One of them was, at least for me, pretty damning. It would crash my whole computer, and also it had a tendency to crash my Streamlabs OBS as well. So that's a little bit rough. Hopefully this doesn't happen with update hot tracks, but just to let you know, it has been delayed until tomorrow. Hopefully everything goes well with it. Anyway, back to this Quadriarma. Now, what is this? Well, it's an Italian heavy fighter, is probably the best way to put it. It was designed before World War II. It was actually based off of the Ro.53, which only really reached prototype stage, and the Ro.57, it was an all-metal, semi-monocoque fuselage with a steel skeleton and duralumin structure, so this thing should be quite heavy and also very good at being able to stay alive. It was actually a pretty powerful machine. The Italians did really well when it came to their engines. There was a few machines which definitely suffered from bad engines, such as the Breda, which we already have in game, but stuff like the Ro.57 and obviously a lot of their single engine fighters worked really well from a speed point of view. This machine was no different, being able to go up to 500 kilometers an hour at the start of the war is pretty nice, and also powered by some pretty nice engines, the Fiat A74RC38 engines. This thing is also armed to the teeth, at least at the level that is coming in. What is kind of interesting is, even though in game it's armed to the teeth, in real life it was seen as you didn't really get enough bang for your buck out of this machine. It could have been something like a long-range interceptor if they decided to do something like that, but it was seen as just too costly for what you actually got out of it. So even though in War Thunder the armament that it has is easily going to be enough, in real life that wasn't seen as suitable. Basically, this has nose-mounted two 20mm cannons and also a pair of 12.7mm in the top, so this thing will be able to take apart anything it really feels like. It also has a quite cool air brake on it as well, and the addition of bombs. It's able to carry at least one 500 in the center mount, and also it can carry some 250s on the wings. This pretty much means that it should be able to do a ton of damage, not just in aerialistic as a kind of interceptor against stuff such as enemy aircraft, e.g. bombers, and also as a supportive fighter against single engine machines. It will also be good in the ground attack role. So if you're a ground realistic player or you're a ground simulator player, this is definitely one to pick up just for those ideas. Hopefully at some point, it will be useful in those ways, and if not, well, it'll still be useful in air realistic. There's a lot of these twin engine fighters that are a hell of a lot of fun in game that a lot of people overlook because, they're not as maneuverable as some of their counterparts. But I think with the Ro.57, along with stuff such as the Hornet, for example, or some versions of the ME410, or even stuff like the Do.335, even the P61, I think it will have a decent place in the game as long as it gets an air spawn, so therefore it can have that little bit of extra juice that it needs to be able to get up to those heights to deal with stuff like bombers and the like. The other thing as well for this vehicle is, as I said, there is another version which is available for it. There's two versions that it has. There's the Ro.57 Quadriarma, or the BIS, which is basically what this one is, the upgraded version, which has the extra guns and also the dive break and the ability to add bombs. And then there's the Ro.57, which is the standard version, and this only has the Fiat A74 radial engines and two 12.7 millimeters. But what's kind of nice about operation vehicles is if they do have a tech tree counterpart, it means if somebody starts playing the game after the point at which these are available, then they can still are able to get access to them in some form, even if it is a slightly weaker version, as long as it's in the tech tree. So I'm completely fine with that. I generally think picking vehicles which do have counterparts to them is generally a good idea, just for that fact. There is also another vehicle that could easily come into the game as well, which was a one-off prototype based off of the Ro.57, and that is this thing. This is the Ro.58, and it was built in 1942. This was an upgraded version of the Ro.57. They basically gave it a bunch of new little toys to it, trying to improve off the Ro.57 platform. In the nose, it had 3 fixed forward-firing 20 millimeters, and then it had 2 other fixed 20 millimeters in the underbelly, so that would be 5 20 millimeters firing forward, and it also had a flexible 12.7 millimeter in the rear cockpit, so very similar to what you see on stuff like the SM91 and the SM92. It also used DB601 engines, which were a lot more powerful. And this thing could get up to 600 kilometers an hour, which is pretty impressive. But the main issue that it had was when it was designed and when it was built. Obviously, it came around in May 1942, or at least that's when its first flight was, and Italy surrendered in September 1943. So it never got to serial production, even though it was seen as a vehicle which could really, do a lot of damage. At the end of the day, it never really came around to anything. Another one of those Italian projects that never really went anywhere, which is kind of sad. Some of the Italian projects, such as the SM series, like the SM91 and 92, they were adopted by the Germans, which is why we have way more information on them, because they flew them and they gathered data on them. Stuff like the Ro.58 is a little bit harder to find, but definitely a vehicle I would love to see in the game. So along with the Ro.57 Quadriarma, there's a bunch of other options that could be added as well, and that means that, at least to me, it's a perfect event vehicle. It also will have access to premium. You won't be able to sell it on the market. It isn't going to be a coupon, I don't think. So once you get it, you get it. And if you're looking to get the MiG-21 PFM, which is obviously the top tier vehicle for this event, Operation Winter, you'll be getting the Ro.57 as well. So this in tow with a bunch of other, Italian vehicles, such as maybe the P40 Leoncellos or maybe some of the single engine fighters, I think will work really, really well, and it definitely shouldn't be overlooked as a platform. The other machines to have a look at, which are similar to this to get an idea, obviously the ME410 series, the Key 45 series, if you're familiar with them, should be very similar. Another thing is they also added in the FC20 BIS, the last update, and if you haven't had a go with that, please do. It's a really fun heavy fighter. It has a really good set of armament, a really rapid-firing, large-caliber gun, and does actually work incredibly well in aerialistic and ground-realistic as a machine to either kill tanks or kill enemy planes. So give it a go, and maybe get an idea of what the Ro.57 will be like. And as I said, I definitely think this thing's worth it for Operation Winter. You should definitely grind the challenges and get it all done. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank John Ryman, Universe, Conte Baraka, eLoveGoat, Trigger Hippie, Eugens Terry, Ambrosius McClellan, Daniel Stanton, Martinez B. Young, and also Hans Fagellen, Sebastian Mizon, and Samuel Schlick for supporting the channel.